Blue today on a special day because the NFL had a historic day today, Andrew Mason, because the salary cap went up by a lot. And this means, to start off with, maybe the Broncos can eat all of Russell Wilson's dead money in 1 year.
Look, I wouldn't be opposed to that. I mean, but that being said, let's just look at what happened here. The widely accepted projection for the salary cap heading into this season was $242 million. Now it's $255 million, an over $30 million rise from last year, the largest single year-over-year rise in the history of the NFL, and percentage-wise, the fourth highest rise in the history of the NFL. Salary cap goes back 30 years. So it does give you some more flexibility, but when we are still talking about big numbers with Russell Wilson, other numbers coming into play here. So it helps a little bit, but it still will hurt if you take on the full $85 million this year, but I think it's a conversation worth having.
Yeah, it's a conversation worth having. And now with that flexibility, you'll assume the cap will go up again next year. It usually does. It always does. But it's like, okay, it won't take that leap. But because you can kind of project and plan ahead, now eating the Russell Wilson dead money, I mean, it's less of a big deal. It's still a big deal. And I don't know if they'll eat it all in 1 year, Mace. But if they eat the 1 year of dead money for this year and then wait to eat more dead money next year, they're kind of fine because of the leap the salary cap made.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're wondering, okay, why did it leap? The salary cap is always tied to revenues. The big leap comes from the increase in Sunday ticket revenues because YouTube assumed that contract, and it comes from kind of more from Amazon Prime and Peacock. Like the NFL gets a little bump, a nice little bump, for taking one of those wild card playoff games and putting it on a streaming service. It was on Peacock last month. Looks like it's going to be on Amazon Prime next winter. You get a bump from that, right? And so all of it comes together. But here's the catch. Everything becomes more expensive. So, for example, if you start looking over the horizon at Pat Surtain's eventual contract, fifth-year option in 2025, so you can kind of work from there. It's not going to be cheap, but be right around $19 million. But you see that cap rising, quarterback costs rise, every premier player sees their price tag rise. So now you start looking at Pat Surtain, and if you are talking about getting him done in a couple of years on a long-term deal, I mean, you may be talking about approaching $30 million, probably easily north of $25 million a year for Pat Surtain. And oh, by the way, quarterbacks get more expensive, which is another reason why you got to look at the draft and ideally find that cost-controlled quarterback for the next 5 years.
Yeah, get that cost-controlled quarterback and let's go. With the Pat Surtain thing, would it prompt them, because of the leap of the salary cap, just to get something done as soon as possible? Like I think it would anyway. But now with more money available via the salary cap, it just makes sense. Why are we waiting, right? He's great. You want to keep him around. You might not get rid of him via trade. That's a conversation as well. So why not set it up and pay the man as soon as you can?
Why not? Well, there are other things to consider. Number one, as you evaluate the value going into the second contract, I think we've been spoiled around here with guys like Chris Harris Jr. and Champ Bailey and even Aqib Talib, who came to Denver for the seventh year of his career. But what we are seeing a little more of now is the cornerback. For cornerbacks, the value maybe declines a little bit when you get into that second contract. So it's fair to wonder, okay, if you see a sign of a decline in productivity, is it worth giving him that contract? That's a question you need to have and see, okay, how is he going to look in year 7, year 8, year 9 of his career? And so that alone may give you pause before you give Pat Surtain a contract. But if you've made that decision, Pat Surtain, he's going to be a valuable part of our core for the next several years, then you do get it done as soon as possible. And yes, there is a risk if he goes and has a couple of torn ACLs or whatever, but that's the risk with any contract, right? I mean,
Right.
you saw it on a smaller scale with Tim Patrick, but that's what you deal with any player.
Mace, is there anything to take away from when people talk about the Broncos not taking a quarterback in the draft? One of the positions they do bring up, and we're going to have a combine preview show on Monday, so maybe this is best for then, but since we're talking about Surtain and paying him and all this, everyone talks corner for Denver. And I've tweeted out some reports of the Broncos talking to day 3 corners, essentially. We know that cornerback is on their list, to be sure. And if they trade back into the 20s, then people have said edge or corner could be the direction they go. Okay. Well, what does that say?
It says that maybe there are pundits that don't believe they have a lot of confidence in Riley Moss. You and I both heard from George Payton last month that they see Riley Moss as a starter in this league. Right. Now, if they go and draft a corner, now it may be about positional value because corner is one of the core positions along with edge, pass protecting tackle, and of course quarterback, right? So there is positional value there, but I would also say this: it's a draft that's deep at tackle, deep at edge. If you do trade down and you go for a non-QB position, I think corner's down the list of where you go. Because the other thing, and we've how many times we've seen this? If you're not getting home in the pass rush without blitzing, then your corners aren't going to be as effective, right? I think
rush and cover.
Yes. And look, do you believe in Riley Moss? If George Payton is lying, and hey, this is the misinformation season, right? If he's lying, then you pick a corner. But if they really believe in Riley Moss, and they traded up to get him last year, if they truly believe in Riley Moss's potential as a player, then you do not draft corner in the first round. Period. You look at edge, you look at tackle, or you even look at Brock Bowers, the tight end out of Georgia. Mm-hmm. That's where you go if you don't go QB. You don't look at corner. You even look at interior defensive line as well, because that's an area of huge need. I'd say interior D line right behind quarterback in terms of needs on this roster.
Yes,
right?
And definitely impactful play that this team needs to get from that defense. Corner's down the list.
Yeah, look, now the whole thing is best player available. Okay. I think you get into day 3, you take best player available. When you're talking about day 1, it is the best player available who fits what your roster demands right now. Yep. And looking at how this draft is potentially going to fall, I don't think if you trade down to say pick 18, pick 20, I don't think you're looking at a difference between the top edge and the top corner, or the top tackle and the top corner, and saying, oh my gosh, there's no value at edge or tackle, we have to go corner. That's not how it's going to look like based on the quality of prospects in this draft.
Right. Now, based on the salary cap movement, you bring up the tackle class. I thought I was bold saying 6 tackles in the first round. Daniel Jeremiah said he's got 7 and then think the top 20, whatever. And again, we'll combine preview Monday, but I want to talk about Garett Bolles specifically, because if we talk about paying guys or extending guys, we have to praise Bolles and what he's done and how he's responded to the coaching of Zach Strief. And okay, maybe an extension, you give him a big bonus, you lower that salary cap number, you get some more salary cap space by reworking Garett Bolles. Again, you could move back and draft a potential left tackle. They're going to be there. But what about paying Garett Bolles now that the cap has gone up?
Look, I've been an advocate of this in part because if you do go quarterback, whether it's at 12 or by trading up, you want to give that quarterback a chance if he's out there. This was a pass protection scheme last year, starting with the line up front, that was 8th in the league in pass block win rate, 3rd in run block win rate, 8th in pass block win rate, okay? So you're not looking at saying, oh, we're throwing this quarterback to the wolves here, he's going to get pulverized. No, he's not. If you keep this line together, now we acknowledge that Lloyd Cushenberry is probably gone, even with this change in the cap, but I think you can figure out a way to get Garett Bolles back if that is something you so desire. Now, then the other alternative is you let go of Bolles and you go with Cameron Fleming at left tackle. We know Cam can play left tackle reasonably well. We saw that back in 22. That's an option as well, but you kind of prefer having Cam as the swing backup because, especially on the left side, there's somebody that you can trust over there if he has to come in. Again, if you have a young QB, you don't want to say, okay, he's going to be a stationary target. Everyone's going to come after him. No, you want to have the line in front of him. And we've seen a lot of quarterbacks get destroyed above all by their internal clock, the feel for the pass rush, malfunctioning because up front they weren't set. Well, the Broncos have put the work in up front. They do have a good offensive line. If it's my team, I'm not breaking that up. I'm doing everything I can to keep that together. And yeah, you might end up losing Lloyd Cushenberry, but I'd even look at some veteran value centers that are going to be lingering on the market. I mean, you remember, this is way back, but Broncos got a good year out of Casey Wigman, for instance.
Oh yeah,
when they did that, they're always like, you always see some vets that linger on the market that can be there in case Forsythe and or Wattenberg don't develop at center.
Right.
But Bolles, he's an above average left tackle. Mm-hmm. He is. Pro Bowl
leader.
Pro Bowler? No. All pro? No. Above average? Yes, he is.
And a leader in the locker room. Mm-hmm. I like that. So I will do the rare, since both of us are Star Wars nerds, Mace.
Yeah.
I will do the rare quote from the Phantom Menace, quoting a young Jake Lloyd. It's working. It's working. Like, I understand fans say the O-line sucks. That's not true.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe you don't like Garett Bolles because you remember when it was holding 72 ad nauseum. And Mike McGlinchey was banged up and he needs to play better. These are all true.
He'll tell you that. That's the thing.
Exactly. Yeah. But if you look overall, this offensive line is much better than people think. So, keeping it together. Now, do you want to keep it together defensively, Mason? I will genuflect to you, my brother, because anytime we talk about Vance Joseph, you know where I stand on that. You know where I stand on the fact that this defense wasn't good. So, keep the band together. It kind of reminds me of the Kirk Cousins conversation we've had of like, okay, you're going to keep the band together. And Cousins and what he does is way better than what the Broncos defense has done. So with the salary cap increasing, is there a thought now to maybe keep some of these defenders around?
That's an interesting question. I'll throw a couple of front seven box defenders in front of you.
Okay.
DJ Jones is under contract, but widely considered to be a potential cap casualty.
Yeah.
Josey Jewell, not under contract, set to become a free agent. I would be more likely if I was told, okay, I can keep one or the other, I would be more likely, based on what I saw last year, to keep Jewell and part ways with Jones. It was not a good season for DJ Jones last year. And here's the thing. He has a primary job out there, especially against the run, and it's to occupy multiple defenders, right? And that was something too often he failed to do. And you know what happens? That makes it hard for Alex Singleton and Josey Jewell at the second level to do their jobs because they're fighting off a guard.
Yep.
Who you want to be part of a double team occupied up front by those interior defensive linemen. When it's all one-on-one, the guards can go to the second level, take out the inside linebackers, and boom, you got open highways. And that happened way too often last year. I mean, I keep mentioning, Fabian Lovett, the guy we saw from Florida State down at the Shrine. Man, that dude could walk in, make your run defense better tomorrow.
Right.
And that is and he could do it probably from a fourth round slot. Okay. And I cannot overemphasize how much better the Broncos need to get against the run. And I think that starts with adding at least one interior defensive lineman at some point, and maybe even taking that whole room aside from Zach Allen and turning it over. And that wouldn't be the worst idea because it was a mess last year. And unfortunately, DJ Jones did not live up to that contract.
And it makes the problems worse for Alex Singleton and for Josey Jewell. Now, we've got a couple of Jewell clips here from the day the Broncos cleaned out their lockers, and we got a chance to talk to Josey Jewell. Mace, let's set up the first one about keeping it together.
keeping it together. Look, I mean, yes, we know how you feel about Vance Joseph's. The defense did play better over the course of the year after that rough start. Although, as we saw against Detroit, for example, not everything was cured against the run, especially when you faced an opponent that had a lot of speed at the skill positions. But by and large, it was a group that improved. And so it was fair to, talk with Josey Jewell about, hey, what happens if you can keep this together? Is that what you're hoping for? Let's roll that beautiful beam footage.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what's going to happen with that? And Coach has talked about that a little bit. I love the continuity right now that we have with our team, especially with the defense. Everybody likes each other, honestly. There's no douchebags out there, so that's nice. It's hard to communicate with some of those guys when they are. So everybody loves each other in this locker room, and that's what's so great about it. And I think we can build some things, going along to next year.
Alex kind of mentioned that guys will just go out, 25 or 30 guys go out to dinner together, like players hang out. Why do you think this team has that kind of association and friendship?
My bad. Bad cut there.
They love each other though, man.
They do.
Because you brought it up about how Alex told us, hey, we hang out together
all the time. Yeah. They do. Those guys do love each other, but at the same time, you have a lot of love and you have a strong sense of association among guys on that defense.
Yeah.
But between the cap and again, hey, the Broncos are still over the salary cap. Okay, they still are, even after it went up $30.6 million relative to last year. They're still over the cap. They were projected to be over the cap when that cap was projected to be $242 million. So really you just got kind of a change of about $13 million in terms of the accounting. So some of it, as was said on Seinfeld, the 1990s, it's like being at a cockfight at 2:30 in the morning and Elaine says, what am I clinging to? Right? And oh, by the way, even if you take out the Miami game, I did an exercise at denversports.com last month, drop the high, drop the low from a lot of, key defensive metrics. So you drop the worst game, you drop the best game. It was still a run defense that was in the bottom 5 in the league across the board. Right. And that tells you really more about where it is on a consistent basis. And, all you have to do is turn on the tape and you see those big holes and you see D linemen getting singled. That's the thing. You need guys up front that can occupy that can occupy blockers. You go back to the no-fly zone. Sylvester Williams, maybe if you were ranking the starters on the no-fly zone defense, Sylvester Williams may have been number 11, right, of the starters. But you know what that dude could do? He could take up 2 blockers.
Yep, he's a plugger. Plug that run.
Yes. Maybe that's not what you were hoping for when you picked him late in the first round of 2013, but that 2013 was such a bad draft across the board. The Broncos got a decent player for 4 years who could occupy multiple blockers. I'd say they came out pretty well compared to a lot of teams and what they did in that first round of the draft.
Right. Part of the reason why you may want to consider Josey Jewell, and I had Drew Sanders as my number 1 inside linebacker, Mace.
Yep.
Okay. Said it a million times on this show. Sanders didn't look ready. So maybe Sanders will eventually be the guy. We all trust in that.
Yeah.
But maybe Jewell could still shepherd him along. And it's one of those things when we talked to Josey Jewell, I had to ask him, well, what do you think of the development of Drew Sanders? Here's what Josey Jewell had to say.
Yeah, I mean, a guy that brought a lot of versatility to the football field, play inside and outside. And I think it's a little tough for him since he didn't play a lot of inside in college to be able to pick that up. But he did a good job when he was in there. Now I'm excited to see what next year brings for him. He can play either position, so it'll be fun to toy around with that and see what he can do.
Maybe like another coach on the field with Josey Jewell out there.
Maybe. But the other interesting thing to consider there is he did have some success late in the season working on the edge.
Yes.
And compared to playing on the inside, edge is more, see man, get man, right? What's interesting there, of course, is and I detailed this on social media this morning. You look at the Broncos pass rush, you look at their edges. You know what? It's like a pitching rotation where you've got a good second starter, a good third starter, and your fourth starter is probably at least as good as a typical number 3, right? So problem is you don't have an ace. Like your ace, I guess what would you call your ace among the pass rushers? If we're including interior defensive line, we'd say Zach Allen is your ace, right?
Yes. Yeah, he's paid like it.
Yes. In win rate among interior defensive linemen, according to Pro Football Focus, he was, I believe, 37th out of 140 interior D linemen with at least 100 pass rush snaps. Okay, so your ace is like a number 2, right? Number 2 starter, maybe even 2/3. And that's so the Broncos have nice depth. They don't have an alpha. And they may not be able to find an alpha, especially if they go quarterback in round 1. That alpha is probably not walking in the door this year. But if you have another guy who is a 2, 3, 4 type, like I mentioned, and you're above basically you've got above average depth and you're coming at him in waves, you can make up for that. And Drew Sanders could be a part of that. And then you just say, Josey, Jewell, you're going to be our inside linebacker, right?
Right.
It's Josey and Alex, and let's keep the band together, and let's roll there and roll into 2024. You move Drew to the outside, give him some more snaps because he is a plus player as a pass rusher off the edge. And then the other focal point becomes, how do you find guys who can occupy blockers on the inside, right? Upgrade that defensive line. If you do that, if you do those things, your run defense is going to look a heck of a lot better than it did last year. It will not be this tragicomedy failing that we saw week after week.
Yeah.
You know, name your running back, Raheem Mostert, Breece Hall, just
Gashing them.
oodles of room. It's like, what the heck is this? How can it look so easy?
Yeah, it's not supposed to be this easy, but
It looks easy when you don't have anybody you have to double team on the interior. It starts there. It fans out.
Yep. Broncos got some work to do. We'll see what they can do. It's a Friday edition, orange and blue today. Hope everyone has a good weekend, Mace.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to get some relaxation in before we get the whirlwind of Indy.
Oh,
We might
man.
have 3 shows a day. I don't want to overpromise, but it's like we're going to be busy. We're chatty blankety blankers. We're going to be busy blankety blankers next week.
I was looking at the schedule today of availability. Holy smokes. By the way, very interesting. Not every coach, not every GM is meeting the media next week. Now, Sean Payton and George Paton are. Good for them. The Broncos are one of 16 teams having both their coach and GM answer questions at the Combine. And for Sean Payton, this is a big deal. He didn't really do this in New Orleans. New Orleans, by the way, is one of 3 teams that has neither the coach nor the GM talking. New Orleans and Dallas are 2 of the teams, and I'm blanking on the third here. Hold, please.
Hold, please.
Yes, I've got it right here. The Rams, the Los Angeles Rams.
Okay.
But Sean McVay talked with local media earlier this week, because that's where he talked about how he's getting a game management coach because he doesn't know how to take care of his timeouts, which is what cost him a chance to come back and win against the Lions in the playoffs.
Right.
But yes, but we're not going to hear from Jim Harbaugh. He's not scheduled to talk. Antonio Pierce, new coach of the Raiders, also not scheduled to talk. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll hit
Interesting.
Antonio up on Facebook, see if he wants to jump on board the show. All right, that's a wrap for today's program. He's Andrew Mason. I am Cecil Lammey. We want you to do the YouTube things, Mace. That means
Like,
comment, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell
so that you never miss a vid. Yeah.
That's right. We got it. Follow him on Twitter and all the socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammey saying OBT is BFD. Thanks to Joey. He's the man in the box.
Mm-hmm.
Stay tuned, everybody. And would you please stay frosty?